All right. Good morning, y'all.
Good afternoon.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started tonight. What I want to do is I want to read a few verses to you. In the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth in his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth in the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, and we faint not." Faint means weary. If we therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them are of the household of faith. The household of faith actually means the local church, and that's in Galatians 6:10. Now, if you look at here, this is like Charles Stanley in his life principles. He said the sixth principle that he learned is you reap what you sow, more than you sow, and later than you sow. I want to read Galatians 6:7 again, and I want to ask you a simple question. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Is that a positive or a negative? It can be either. It can either be good or bad. You're exactly right. Because he talked about depending on where you sow. Now, if you take a farmer, and how he operates. The first thing he does is he plants in a field that'll produce. He harvests the product, the kind of seed he wants to plant. The farmer will always take more from the ground than he puts into it. The farmer must wait until the crop matures. He must be patient and care for the seed as it is planted. And then the farmer knows the rewards of his harvest always comes later than the initial investment. When you think about this verse, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, he shall also reap." And Lindsay, you're right, it can be good or bad depending on how you're sowing seeds. I've watched over the years many parents that have put their children, especially young girls, into a lot of beauty pageants at a very, very early age. But they didn't stop there. What they did was, that's how they treated their daughter on up to the adult years. She had to be perfect. I mean, perfectly fit, perfect hair, perfect this, perfect that. I don't know if any of y'all did this, I may be speaking out of turn. I am dead set against babies, young children, going to beauty pageants. But let me explain to you why. I think you're planting the wrong seed, because a lot of them are saying, what baby wins? See, baby Lindsay wins. So what do we say about baby Lindsay? She's prettier, y'all. Y'all is ugly. Okay? But what we're saying to young children is, and we start planting seeds, and I'm not saying a child should, I know you were impressed about whatever, and all like that. Not saying that, but what I'm saying is, when you constantly get them to compete, have you seen it? Do you remember in your school years how there was always one or two of the ladies, girls, like, always was above everybody else? You know, school. Or the same thing with the guys. I was reading an article, and I use this periodically in a sermon, but it's something that I can't help but think about. There was a man by the name of Marv Maravich. I hope I'm saying the last name right. But in 1962, he played for University of Southern California, USC. He was All-American, and he also played in the Rose Bowl in '63. He had later on in life, he got married, he graduated from college, his wife dropped out so she could marry him. And they had a child together that was a son. His name was Todd. When she was pregnant with Todd, his wife ate no salt, of course, no tobacco, alcohol, anything like that. When the child was born, it was only fed fresh vegetables, raw milk, something else very, very healthy. As the child got just a little bit older, his dad would take his legs and stretch them, and his arms. Not abuse, but just stretch them out for the hamstrings. Stretch them, kind of working out, baby. Like I said, not abuse, but just keeping that baby in shape. As the child got older, well, actually, one of his first gifts was, believe it or not, football. But it was not a Nerf football or a stuffed football. It was a real football. Todd grew up, and his dad went and worked the third shift, what we call graveyard shift, so that he could make sure that he coached or the physical coaching of a child. How many, have y'all heard of travel ball today? I've heard of travel ball today. A lot of times, parents today get so caught up in travel ball, what they'll do is they'll actually hire, let's say like softball, let's say it's girls softball, they'll hire a pitching coach, right? I mean, even though it's fast pitch underhand, they want them to get that right movement or whatever, that right. They'll hire batting coaches. I mean, this travel ball's gotten so big, it started off, of course, you travel around and play in different tournaments. When you play on a travel ball team, it's not like every child gets to play. It's like if you're on a travel ball team, you're a really good athlete at a young age. And as you get older, teenagers. But what happens is, those parents get so adamant about this that they actually hire people. I mean, I watch people all the time at work go through this. They go to Birmingham for a pitching coach 2 or 3 times a week. Work where I do, drive to Birmingham. One is actually sending their child to Auburn and getting this special, it's like a 4-hour study of the brain and all that stuff. Auburn's known for like players and stuff like that, to see where they're lacking, what physical help they need. It's gotten so big. But anyway, go back to Todd. Todd's dad nurtured him, worked him hard, had him in football. He was a high school All-American. Well, Todd went to college at USC, became an All-Star. And there was an article, I can't remember, maybe Time magazine, about him. He never, as a child, as a teenager, as a college student, ate a Big Mac, fast food fries. Everything was healthy. Todd went on to leave USC and was drafted by the Oakland Raiders in the NFL. Then he started experimenting with drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. One thing led to another, and he had a very short career. He got busted numerous times. You say, well, his dad put all that effort into him to try to help him, and look at him. He's still living today. He's late 40s. He has something to do with football, but he looks like a very older person than what he is. He played hard with life, lived hard. His football career was ruined. It's not the idea of making sure you make the NFL or playing football. says Dad did everything he could while he was in Mama's womb to nurture him, to get him to sow in those seeds. Okay? Nothing spiritual, strictly athletics. I think a lot of times the girls too, and I'm not saying don't put them in events or anything like that. Don't take it strong. I think all good. I think dancing's good, whatever, and all that good. I'm just saying, don't try to train up a child to think it's better than everybody else. Makes sense. So sowing seeds. This scripture is very, very difficult. Okay? Because it says, "Be not deceived." It says God is not mocked. Where it says God is not mocked, what that means is, mock God, you're turning your nose at it, nose up at it. You're saying, I don't need you. Okay? Now, we're going to look at three things tonight, and I'm not going to read all of them. Read all of it. Day 1, plant the seeds for tomorrow. Day 2, the universal truth. And day 3, the coming yield. And this was in your studies this week. Now, the question we got here is, what seeds are you planting? What would you like to accomplish in life? These two questions are unavoidable linked. Every decision you make, every word you speak, every temptation you resist, every urge you give in, every thought you express, and every opinion you allow to flourish sows the seed. For this reason, it is important to be conscious of what you're doing or what you're sowing with your thoughts, your words, your actions, because they set a direction for your life. Notice where it says there in the yellow, we cannot sow disobedience to God and expect to reap a blessing. What we sow, we reap. Now, Adam and Eve, we always use them for an example. And you can look at chapter 3, verse 15 through 19, when they were evicted out of the garden, God simply said that for a woman, you're going to end up in childbirth having labor pains. So, for a man, okay, you're going to have to work by the sweat of your brow. Man always had to work. Even if you go back to the Garden of Eden when everything was perfect, Adam had to dress the garden, as it says, or work the garden. But it wasn't hard work. It was work. It was steady work. But it wasn't as difficult as work is like today or even after he was evicted from the garden. Now I need to show you a verse there. Do you see verse 16 where it says, "To the woman I will make you pains in childbearing"? It's very severe. "With painful labor they will give you birth of child." You notice that next part where it says, "Your desire will be for your husband, he will rule over you." Anybody know what that means? It says where it says, "Your desire will be for your husband," actually means that a woman is going to desire to take a man's place. God always created a man to be the head of the home. Not a boss, not a dictator, but a leader. That's the reason why I said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Okay? Wife is the heart of the home, and children are the hub of the home. So you have the head, the heart, and the hub. But he says here, there's going to be basically a battle between a woman wanting to do a man's responsibility. If you look in a lot of cases today, you see a very domineering woman that wants to take the place of a man, and a man just sometimes just lackadaisical and just don't care. And sometimes there's just war between the two. Now, again, I don't want you to misread anything that I'm saying. Okay? A woman is not supposed to be on the dog leash and walk around. Okay? That's not what he's saying. Man has an awesome responsibility. If you go back to the Garden of Eden, God gave Adam the commandment not to eat of the tree, not Eve. Everybody says, well, it's Eve's fault, she ate first. It was Adam's fault because he was to take care of Eve. Not only did Eve eat of the tree first, but she gave Adam, and told Adam. He didn't tell Eve, he told Adam. It was Adam's job to take care of Eve. Now, of course, they had to pay the consequences. A beautiful place where they're at, and everything's going good. If you look in the parable, in fact, we studied it in Sunday school, the parable of the talents. Okay? Men received, there's 3 servants, they all received different talents. One received 1, one received 5, one received 10. I'm sorry, 5, 2, 1. 5, 2, 1. And the first 2 did very well with their talents. The talents represent their service for the Lord. The one with 1 talent did nothing, and the Lord told him, you slothful servant. Okay? The other 2, he said, you faithful servants. Now, when failure to follow God's instructions can lead to forfeiting his blessings. I want to think about sowing seeds for a minute. One of the biggest industries today, marketing industries, filmmakers, is what they call pornography. Pornography is huge. It's not $1,000 a year production. It's not $1 million a year production. It's in the upper billions. Pornography, you can see porno sites on computers. You see people subscribing to them. You hear about it in the news. You see them all over the place. You say, well, that's the unbelievers. No, it's not. If it's $1 billion industry, there's a lot of Christians involved in it too. Now, you know it's mainly men. But here's the thing I want you to think about. A young man decides he's going to get on the computer and watch porno sites. Just do it for time. I'm just going to look at it, see what it's all about. At one time, he's going to see so much. It's going to be up here. Now, we can say what we want to. We remember a lot of stuff. We can say we forget a lot of stuff, but we remember a lot of stuff. Everybody can go around this room and talk about their childhood days and stuff they remember, that good and bad. And just little things that seem insignificant but can remember. Well, somebody gets on there and they look at a porno site. That don't leave their mind. You see, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, fast food, gambling, so on. There's always addictions. Everything. Pornography is an addiction. People can say what they want to, but I have met good Christian people who shocked the daylights out of me by saying, I'm hooked on pornography. Not in this church, so I'm hooked around and say, what? Everybody's hooked. But I have met, because people have came up to me, and they go to different churches, and I would never believe it. These people, there's some that just absolutely, I'm just devastated by because they know the Bible so well. I mean, they can teach, they know Hebrew words, they know Greek words, they know anything you want to talk about in the Bible, the book of Genesis, the book of Revelations. You bring up the conversation, they'll join you. Minor prophets, whatever, Daniel, whatever, they can jump right in there with you. And I say, hey, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to pray for me because I'm hooked on pornography. Whoa. The old horse look, you know, whoa. Well, what I found out about it is there's a lot of people, and they just did it, but they always had that thought in their mind. You don't have to tell somebody, I mean, at the early age, kids, you got to teach right and wrong. But there comes a time when you know right from wrong, period. You don't have to, as a teenager or even a young man, say, I'm going to grow up rob a bank. I think that's legal. I'm going to go rob a liquor store. Watching porn is going to be good. When I get older enough, I'm going to watch porn. And you go on and on about the list of things. But there comes a point when you know right from wrong. You may still do wrong, but you know right from wrong. Well, that's exactly what it's saying here, is that you plant the seeds for tomorrow. What may have been just a little innocent young man or even older man going to look at it one time, all of a sudden now it's just planting the seed for tomorrow. So that's something that you got to think about. It's just something. Notice where it says in the yellow down there near the bottom. It says it's dangerous thing to think God won't mind. He doesn't mind you disobeying. You may not immediately see the consequences of your actions, but they are coming. This is one reason why we always teach confession and repentance, even though it's saved. Now, you think about the things that you and I think about, okay? Let's just take the majority of the people my age right now that's in the workforce. You know what their number one concern is? Money. But you know why it's money? Retire. Right? How much am I going to need to retire? How long will I live? When can I retire? I'll retire quick. I'll have to work all my life. Will it be Social Security going? Are they going to raise the age of Social Security for everybody 1960 and over? Born 1960 and after. Your retirement age is 67. To get full benefits, you can retire at 62, 65, and get full benefits at 67. Everybody can draw Medicare at 65. But you begin to think like this. When you're in your 20s and your 30s, you don't really pay as much attention to it as you do as you get older. It's a way of life. But when you sit here and you put every thought, every seed that you're sowing into that, when it's all said and done, it's not worth it. Not saying you ain't got to prepare it. I'm just saying that that's all you're concerned about. Because that's what he's saying, be not deceived. God's not mocked. And you're right, Lindsay, when you said this is good and bad, because the next two verses following, one of them talks about sowing seeds in the flesh and sowing seeds in the spirit. There's some things that we got to plan for, but we got to leave God, the rest of it God. You can't control everything. But one thing that you and I are in charge of is how much we sow seeds in our spiritual life, and how much we sow in our fleshly life. So you can go on and on, but remember the seeds that you plant today, plant the seeds for tomorrow. Again, what you are today is a result of your thinking and the way you lived in the past. Making wise decisions today enables you to make wise decisions when? Tomorrow. Now, let me say this. In the scriptures, Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, he said, be not deceived, God's not mocked. So, then he talks about sowing seeds in the flesh and in the spirit. But then in verse 9, he says, and let us not be weary. Well doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And notice what he says here. And let us not be what? Weary in well doing. In other words, never get tired of doing the right thing. Never get tired of growing spiritually. Don't give up. Because here he says, in due season, it will pay off. Now, if you look on the other side, we'll look at day 2 of our week study this past week. Day 2 is the universal truth. Principle 6 about be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever he shows, what you'll read, applies to every Christian and every non-Christian. Now, this principle is irreversible. There is no escape, either believer or unbeliever. It is a law of life. Now, in the previous, in chapter 6, it talks about, the previous verses, it talks about being careless and all like this, and not living right. King Nebuchadnezzar, in the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verse 30 through 37, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but King Nebuchadnezzar, he seen 2 things where God had really done great work. Number 1, he captured Judah, and they brought Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the rest of the people from Jerusalem and Judah to his kingdom, Babylon. They were treated as slaves. They wanted the smartest Hebrew boys that they could find, and they were going to brainwash them into the Babylonian way of thinking. Well, 4 of them that we know, there might have been more, but 4 of them that we know was Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Very smart men. They wanted to not eat of the king's meat and drink of his wine. So they decided, they talked to the officer and all like that, the officer was scared to death. But anyway, they did. And Nebuchadnezzar seen that since he didn't take part of the pagan feast that they had and all like this, what they seen was strong, smart, intelligent men. Daniel, they all got promoted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then all of a sudden, we find down the road where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was told to bow down, and they wouldn't. You know the story, they'd thrown in the fire. Nebuchadnezzar goes out. He's seen God work, and over he said, Daniel's God is the only true God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he's the only true God. But the only problem with Nebuchadnezzar, he wouldn't follow through. So Nebuchadnezzar goes out one time, and the Babylonian Empire was one of the biggest, prettiest empires. It was just absolutely gorgeous. He goes out, I guess, on the terrace there one day, and looks out and he says, look what I have done. Look what I have built. Am I not amazing or what? I done this. Just like that. God gave him a very odd disease. I remember what it was.
He was a cow.
Yeah, it was a brain disease to think he was a cow. And he went around for 7 years, eating the ground, eating the grass, all like that, not coming in from the weather. Now, after 7 years, he came back to his senses. God did it. Because what this man did was he sowed so many seeds about himself, he thought he was better than anybody. You might remember somebody like that in the New Testament. King Herod. Remember when he allowed people to bow down to him, worship him? Fowls of the air and everything else came to eat him up. So you see things like that. It doesn't mean it's a universal truth, whether a lost person or a saved person. It's still a universal truth. It goes for both steps. One thing that you'll always hear me bring up, I say always, not every sermon, but a lot of sermons or a lot of teaching lessons, is the judgment seat of Christ. The reason why is I know and you know that one day we're going to stand before God. Everything that we do for the right reason, with the right motive down here on earth, will be rewarded. My gosh, we've got to be reminded of that over and over and over again. Because sometimes you get burned out, get burned, get tired, get. Does anybody listen? Does anybody care? Why can't people just act right? remember 2 Corinthians 5:10. We're all going to have to appear before the judgment seat of Christ and receive whatever we do for the time we had here on earth, whether it be good or bad. Now, if you think about it, a universal truth, Israel decided to go out there on their own. If you look at the Old Testament, Israel was jealous of every other nation. And they decided they wanted a king. Up to that point, Israel never had a king. They always had, anybody remember? Judges. Okay? In fact, if you read in the book of Judges, you know what it's about? It's Judges. So they wanted a king, so they decided they'd go out and find themselves a king. God said, okay, I'll let you do it, but you're going to regret it. So what did they do? They got him a king. Was King Saul a good man or a bad man? King Saul was the tallest man in the smallest tribe, Benjamin. When they elected him as king, he tried to hide behind people. Because he didn't want, he was a very humble person. Later on, he got too big for his britches, became very arrogant, and you know what all he tried to do, King David, and so on, and what it cost him. But I want you to think about the seeds that Saul sowed. Okay? He got his son killed because of jealousy. He lost his life because of jealousy. He wouldn't do right because he wanted to be the center of attention. Again, it's a universal truth for believers and unbelievers. And then finally, we learned on day 3, the coming yield. We reap more than we sowed. Just like a farmer plants their seeds by expecting a harvest, a great gain, they sow. A single seed can sprout, can yield dozens, scores, even hundreds of seeds. A small decision to do either good or bad reaps a much bigger crop. When I look at the story of Ruth and Naomi, when they lost everything they had, and Ruth decided to stay with Naomi, the biggest shocker in this story was how negative Naomi was. You could tell in her face, it said, in fact, when she went back to Bethlehem, they said, that's not Naomi. Naomi actually means pleasant. She said, call me Mara, M-A-R-A, which meant bitter. They said her face, complexion-wise, changed from a nice, sweet, innocent face to one with bitterness. But Ruth decided to follow her. Ruth didn't know what was going to take place. She just knew she was doing the right thing by following somebody who worshiped the right God. And you know the rest of the story where she met her Boaz. Now, as a follower of Christ, you may become discouraged when the present seed you're sowing does not appear or produce an immediate crop. One thing that every child and every adult lives the Christian life will experience is, why don't they come to church when I invite them? I remember actually asking that when she was a child. I invite a lot of people, but they don't come. But they say they will. I said, yeah, you haven't seen nothing yet. That don't go away. It's discouraging, though. You gotta be careful. You can't give up, and that's what that's all about. Be not deceived, God's not mocked. If you would look there towards the bottom in the yellow, where it says there's no regular timetable for the harvest of life. Some crops we reap quickly, others take a long time. Do not be deceived, their season will come. And by going the second mile and giving more than is required, we will reap rich dividends later. It always scares me when people follow these health and wealth preachers, because they really believe, they act like it's investment for monetary gains or spiritual gains. One thing I will guarantee you, I'm not absolutely right on this. You look me up in heaven. Come out. But it'll pay off for every good deed, for every right motive. It'll pay off. Great. Got my word. Actually, it's not my words. Okay? Next week. Is everybody reading their scriptures? Okay, next week we're going to look at 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 1 through 12, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, James chapter 1, and Galatians chapter 5. Okay? So that's 4 days there. Prepare for next week. All right, any comments? Questions? You awake? So it sees. Okay. Sees God. Anything before we dismiss? Good. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you so much, Lord, for everything that you do for us. But God, help us to take this lesson to heart. Lord, me personally, I believe Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 is a tough verse to swallow. It's good when you're doing things right, but we've got to understand that what we sow is what we're going to reap. Lord, we've seen many illustrations tonight of things that's happened. Lord, help us to understand tonight that when our hearts and our ways and our actions and our words are not according to your will and your word, God, help us to quickly repent, ask for forgiveness, and move on. God, help us not to continue sowing those type of seeds. Because, Lord, all they are is damaging to the rewards that we can receive in heaven, as well as other people's lives here on earth. God, we just ask you now to be with us as we leave here and give us a safe journey home. Bring us back to our next appointed time. For it's in Christ's name.